Now, if we go back to the idea of our conducting system, go all the way back to here. And I realize that my conducting zone ends at the level of the terminal bronchioles, and that my respiratory begins right after the terminals. And if we look at this diagram right here, oops, there's my tertiary, right? Coming all the way down, there's my terminal. And you see this little white box? Well, that white box is your respiratory zone. And this whole box right here, what is this whole box representing? How do you know that?
It's like
Yeah, because it says so right there, right? Again, it's about how to read diagrams, right? This whole section, that means a bronchopulmonary segment, is about bronchial, smaller bronchi, bronchioles, terminals, and alveolars. Don't memorize that. But do look at this part right here, right? From right here on down, this is where we can do gas exchange, in that little white box. That's where you guys can do external respiration. One of the reasons that's true is if we go back to our primaries, look at the structure of the cartilage around the primary. It's like rings of cartilage. But the secondaries are more like big gigantic shields or plates. They're not complete rings anymore. Come down to the tertiaries, they're more like scabs. Smaller bronchi like specks and flakes of cartilage. Meaning there's less and less cartilage. And by the time you get to the bronchioles, there's no more cartilage. But you do have the beginning of smooth muscle tissue. Beginning of smooth muscle tissue at the bronchioles, but there is no cartilage. We're going to zoom in on that in a second. Let's look at the bronchopulmonary segments. And that's what this is to show us. First of all, we can see the different colors, right? Gold, green, and blue. That's a visual for the branches of the secondary bronchi. I got 3 colors on the right. I've got 2 colors on the left. Bronchopulmonary segments, right? That's what these little, so these are your terminals right in here. And they didn't make terminals a different color. But the whole idea of the terminal bronchioles is that they lead to these things. Bronchopulmonary segments. And as you look at the names, right? Bronchopulmonary segment of middle lobe, middle lateral, bronchopulmonary segments of inferior lobe, posterior basal, lateral basal. You guys have those words on your need to know list? No? So guess what? Don't memorize them. All right? But here's what I do want you to get from this. A bronchopulmonary segment is like an individually self-contained compartment. Like a little individually self-contained compartment. That if you remove it, it won't damage the neighboring compartments. That becomes significant in this way. So Superman's fighting the Civil War, and you get shot in the left, through the right lung. All right? They're going to remove, if you got shot right there, they're going to remove the whole thing because the musket ball tears a big hole in you, plus we didn't know any better. So they remove the entire right lung. Now we go to World War II, and you get shot in the exact same place. You get shot there, so you're having a bad lifespan. Right? Now, they're not going to remove the whole lung. They just remove the superior lobe because we realize, oh, they're small compartments. This one doesn't affect these two. So if we just take this one out, you'll still have these two to work with. And so it'll give you a better quality of life. And now, today, you realize that every color is a different self-contained compartment. So if you got shot right there, we simply remove the blue part, but we keep the green and the other green one intact. We give you more lung tissue, more functionality. You respond better to the treatment because it's a bronchopulmonary segment. We remove the segment, but it doesn't damage the functionality of any other neighboring segment. It's sort of like the working version of the Titanic, right? Where one compartment doesn't lead to the other. And that's actually one of the reasons why that poor ship sank, is that the wall that goes up to the hull, to the deck, didn't go all the way to the top. and water came up over the edge and went down to the next compartment, filled that compartment up, and bled over to the next compartment. That's why it went nose down first. We started filling up the cells as well as other damage. For us, it's really cool, right? You've got 10 on the right, and about 8 to 10 that varies in people, because people vary a little bit. So we have between basically what, 18 to 20 bronchopulmonary segments, which is kind of nice because all you have to do is remove the ones that are infected and not remove the ones that aren't. It gives you a better chance of surviving. But do not memorize the names. If you go into respiratory therapy, you get to have all that fun. All right, at the level of the respiratory zone, there's your terminal bronchiole. You go, wait, where is that? Terminal bronchiole, right? Where there's the tertiaries, there they are, right? No more cartilage, but we do have smooth muscle tissue. And we can see that here, right? There's the bands of smooth muscle tissue. Does anybody here have an inhaler? All right, how fast does your inhaler work?
Like 10 minutes probably. Well, actually pretty more immediate.
Yeah, I'm gonna say more like 1.5 to 2 seconds. Yours doesn't work that fast?
I mean, you have to take it multiple times over a couple minutes.
Yeah. So what's in it?
Albuterol.
All right, so you have that's a steroidal anti-inflammatory.
Yes.
So anti-inflammatory, remove inflammation. It's also relaxant, right? The steroidal part. Someone who's experiencing maybe an asthma attack or a bronchitis attack, these muscles are constricting. And one thing I'm trying to teach you about diameter of structures. If diameters get smaller, what happens to flow? It gets more resistance, right? It's harder to breathe in. So you take an inhaler, and when you take an inhaler, you don't just squirt, you actually inhale it as you depress the cylinder to suck the medicine down into your bronchioles. That allows the muscles to relax, hopefully then they dilate and you get easier airflow. Well, right here at the respiratory bronchiole, I've got some muscle tissue, but not much. But I do begin to see these little round individual, right, alveoluses. So you can technically do some gas exchange at the level of the respiratory bronchiole, but not a whole lot because there aren't very many of them here. You get down here, right, to an alveolar structure, an alveolar sac, where every little alveolus, right, has a pulmonary capillary over it, and we can see the little bands of elastic connective tissue around each one, right? And so this is where you guys do your gas exchange. And if you notice these little individual alveoli, there's that little purple dot in them. Each one, every single one of these little alveoli has a hole in it. And that allows for the even distribution of air throughout the entire lung tissue. You don't just fill up the first few alveoli as the air is the first one to get there. It's like when you guys fill up an air mattress for a sleeping bag, right? The first part begins to fill, but there's probably panels inside of it to give it some structure. And there's holes in those panels, and the air moves through the panels, so I can get the air through the entire mattress in one easy flow. As air comes in, if air comes into this alveolus, it can pass through that hole into the neighboring alveolus, which passes it on to the next and passes it on to the next. So as air comes down in here, I would just be filling up these guys if there were no holes. But the air comes in, can pass into this one, fill it up, but then that allows the pressure to move into here, and then moves there, here, and I can spread the air through the entire structure. So it all fills up at once. And that's due to those holes. Well, look at the walls of your alveolus, right? Those guys right there, right? That is simple squamous epithelium. That simple squamous is what makes the wall of your alveolus. And we can even see them on top. So they're creating this big balloon-like structure. And I can see there's the hole right here that goes from this alveoli, or alveolus, to that one, so the air can move in between the two. And what's another name for these guys by simply just calling them simple squamous epithelia? They're also known as pneumocyte type 1s. Kind of a fancy name, but here's what I'm trying to get across to you guys. If somebody bothered to call them pneumocyte type 1, why bother calling them type 1s? because there's probably a type 2. Otherwise, you just call them pneumocytes. So who are the pneumocyte type 2s? That's these guys way up here, right? The little gold-colored guys, every one of these are pneumocyte type 2s. Well, there's a better name for them. You guys actually have already heard the name. Over here on the whiteboard, they're called septal cells. Pneumocyte type 2 are septal cells. Remember, they create that chemical called surfactant. Remember, surfactant helps to minimize surface tension by interfering with hydrogen bonding. So we have a couple of them around every single alveolus, so we can make lots of surfactant. Remember, it's going to line the inside of your alveolus, so I can coat all that moisture. And then here are the cross sections of all of your pulmonary capillaries. There's lots of capillaries, kind of like wrapping around your alveoluses in this fashion. Well, let's look at how difficult it is for a gas to get into your or out of your alveolus. So there's the reminder, right? Big dead horse we're beating. Septal cells make surfactant, which is really an oily secretion that reduces your surface tension. And then this. Get your bearings. What the hell am I looking at? All right. Look at the words. Figure out where you are in relation to structure. I see down here that says alveolar airspace. So that means you're probably right in this airspace right here. Now, what's that blue line called? And where do we find surfactant? In the layer of water, right, that lines the inside. So this is a layer of water with some surfactant in it. What is this purple structure here?
Alveolar.
Well, that was a really good
Epithelium.
response. Let me try this. What is that dark purple line representing?
Simple squamous.
A which?
The simple squamous.
Not really. You're half right, half wrong. All the purple is that.
Epithelium.
So what if I said that this lighter purple was the cytosol of the cell? What would the dark purple represent then? The cell membrane, right? What's the name for a cell membrane? Semi-permeable membrane. All right. Now, what's this big red band up here? Well, you could say, dude, it's endothelium. But what is endothelium?
Lining of the tissue.
It's simple squamous epithelium. That means then, what's that red line represent? The cell membrane. What does that red line represent? Cell membrane. What is this? That's blood, right? So all this yellow stuff would be what? Plasma. What's this big red thing up here? That's this red blood cell. And what do red blood cells have? That endothelial cells have? That alveolar epithelium have? Cell membranes. This is the point I'm trying to get to. If my red laser pointer is going to be an oxygen molecule, there I am in my alveoli. I didn't get stuck to mucus. So, what do I have to pass through? A thin layer of water that covers my alveoli. I have to pass through that cell membrane into the cytosol of that cell. I then have to pass through the other cell membrane on the other side of that same cell, pass through some connective tissue, pass through another cell membrane of the endothelium that makes the capillary I want to get into, through the cytoplasm of that simple squamous, through another cell membrane, into the plasma of my blood, through another cell membrane of my damn red blood cell, where I actually bind to a hemoglobin molecule. So you've got to pass through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cell membranes, and 1, 2, 3, 4 liquid layers. This is at the brink of diffusion. Much thicker than this, and you're not going to get gas to move from one place to another. What's the point of that? What kind of respiratory condition do people have if they have a really hard time, life-threatening level of breathing? Maybe pneumonia? With an increased layer of water in their lungs, increased layer of thickness of mucus in their lungs? If you make that blue barrier get thicker, it's harder for oxygen or CO2 to pass through. They're going to need to have assistance because we are at the brink of not being able to do diffusion even under healthy conditions, because that's a lot of layers of stuff to move through. They don't have transporters carrying oxygen from one place to another, which is why you seem to have respiratory issues of it's harder to breathe, feel a little short breath, because with that little extra mucus in the lungs, a little extra moisture in the lungs, it's harder for the oxygen to pass through. That's all. Right? Just a little easy list, right? All right, so make sure you work through the respiratory anatomy list. I would do that tonight. Begin working on some of that stuff. Keep your eyes open for an email probably tomorrow about what will be on the quiz. I'm crossing my fingers, hoping the quiz is more helpful than detrimental. We'll kind of play it by ear to see what happens with that. All right? I'm going to turn you guys loose. Make sure you put the proper model in the proper place. Look for any model that shows respiratory structures. Lung models, torso models, lung models down here on the shelf. Bring those or photograph those and study from those.